Hello? Okay, I think this is happening. I think it's live. Okay, so hi. If you're watching this, you probably know me, though I might upload this on YouTube afterwards, just in case anybody that wasn't on Facebook wants to watch it. So hello, my name's Penny, if that's the question. And I hope you guys are all okay out there. I know this is a really tough time for everybody. There's not much I can really say about it that hasn't already been said. Essentially, I know a lot of people on Facebook that I'm friends with are struggling a lot right now. I'm friends with a lot of people that are in industries like theater, live events, weddings, restaurants, bars, things like that, and cruise ships. And, obviously there's a lot of layoffs happening. There's a lot of furloughs happening. So I just felt like, there's a lot of people that are looking for more opportunities to make money from home. And I've spent the last year working from home, and I just wanted to kind of share what I know about working from home. I know it's probably not going to be the same as my experience, because my experience involved a lot of going to stores, and I know a lot of locations right now are being shut down, so you can't really go out to non-essential businesses. But I do want to share what I think you could do in order to maybe make some extra income. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the thing. I can't really see right now if you post them because I have the full screen of the presentation. Just let me know if you have any questions and I'll try and see if I can find them afterwards. But if I don't answer it for some reason, feel free to send me a message and I would be happy to help you out after. So yeah, cool. Also, I am moving right now, so I might be a little bit slow to respond just because there's a lot going on. We're literally leaving tomorrow, so yeah. Okay, so this is a little presentation that I put together. I'm going to show you sort of live how to do everything. But yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask and I'll try to answer them all at the end. So selling on eBay and Poshmark during COVID-19. I'm going to talk a little bit more about other platforms that you can sell on, but these are the main two that I sold on in the past year. So yeah, selling online. Here's a little overview of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about platforms that you can sell on, what you should be selling, where you can find it, price checking, taking pictures and measurements, listing, promotions and sharing, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, you can read it. But yeah, and then at the end I'll be doing Q&A if there's any questions. So quick introduction. If anyone's ever watching this that doesn't know me, hi, I'm Penny, like a coin. That's how I always introduce myself. I've been reselling since October of 2018, which I ramped up a lot in 2019. In 2019, I made almost 20K in revenue and 12K of that was profit. So that helped me a lot with car payments, rent, other utilities. It helped pay a lot of my basic bills, which was great. And there's a picture of me with a bunch of packages, which was pretty recent. I actually just sold off all of my inventory, so I don't do this anymore because I'm moving and I just didn't want to take it with me. I'm moving on to different things, but still wanted to share my experience. So here's some platforms that you can sell on. The first one is eBay. If you have forgotten about eBay or for some reason never heard of it, basically it's this big online, it's basically an online garage sale, I think is the best way to describe it. You can sell literally anything. I mean, there's restrictions. You can't sell like guns, but you can sell pretty much anything. The main thing I'm going to talk about today is selling clothing, but I know electronics and collectibles and items like that sell a lot on eBay. You can do either buy it nows, which are like a fixed price listing, or you can do auctions, which is where you have a starting price and people bid on it. And either works. I've done both. Next up is Poshmark, which you've probably also heard of. It's very popular right now, mostly among people selling just out of their own closet, but there are people that have made a full-time income doing it. So it's definitely a legitimate way to make money. But yeah, Poshmark, basically, it's almost like the social media of selling platforms. You share your listings and people can find them, but they find them like in order of when they were last shared. So you do have to be kind of more active on it to get a lot of sales. But yeah, Poshmark's mostly for clothing, and I would say mostly for women's clothing, but you can definitely sell men's clothing on there, especially because so few people list on there men's clothing. But yeah, and then there's Etsy, which is only vintage or handmade. So if you are thinking about hand making anything, maybe knitting, Etsy is a great place for that. And if you have any vintage clothes, Etsy is also a really good place for that. You can definitely get a higher price on Etsy than you can on eBay because it's more of a boutique feel. Then there's Depop, which is I think the newest one. Depop, it definitely is more of like a Gen Z platform. There's a lot of people looking for like Y2K clothes, which is amazing to me that anyone is looking for clothes from like the early 2000s. But they're definitely really popular on there. So that's another good place to sell. It's a little less, I guess, structured than eBay or Poshmark. Some people won't ship things out for like a month. So if you are looking for something more casual, Depop might be a good place to do it. But Depop has definitely been a little overrun by people drop shipping, which means basically they order something from Asia and then ship it to the person who bought it. They don't actually sell their own stuff. And finally, we have Mercari. I've never actually sold on Mercari, but I've heard okay things about it. I don't know that much about it, but I just wanted to share it if you want to look for another platform. So if you are joining Poshmark for the first time, if you use my username, then you get $10 Posh credit if you want. It really is not important to me if you want to use it or not. But yeah, if you do want to get $10 Posh credit, then just use Weird Girl VTG. Cool, so that's platforms. So what should you sell? There's kind of 4 categories that I feel like I narrowed it down to when I was selling on eBay and Poshmark. First is unique. So collectibles, one-of-a-kinds, cool pieces from popular brands, limited editions. What we found here in Florida was a lot of like unique Disney items that were like limited edition. Yeah, so that's one thing. Then we have trendy, so brands from like Anthropologie and Urban Outfitters are really popular. Excuse me. The brands that you know and people are looking for. And then vintage. So vintage is anything more than 20 years old. So from basically the year 2000 and earlier. Vintage, it has a really big following. I was amazed how many people are really into vintage clothing, and myself included. And yeah, basically if you find anything with a date on it, if it looks old, I could talk for a long time about how to identify vintage clothing, but the easiest way is to see if it has a date on it and it's in like the 90s. People are really into 80s and 90s vintage right now, but there will always be people looking for 50s, 60s, 70s. And then finally we have hard goods, so like electronics, Nerf guns, board games, things like that. People are always looking for on eBay. So where can you find your inventory? So the first place that I would recommend looking is your closet and basically your house or apartment. So just look around your closet for clothing that you no longer wear and that you could sell. Or even clothing that you're just like, you know what, I don't love this that much, I'd rather sell it. That's the easiest way to start, and that's how a lot of people start, is just you realize, oh, I could sell this and then buy something new. But especially right now, if you're needing extra money to sort of pay the bills and stuff, just go into your closet, look around your house. There's probably some clutter around that you're like, you know what, I bet I could sell this for like 10, 20 bucks. The place that I always went was thrift stores. So I know right now that's sort of not possible for everybody. If it is possible to leave your house, thrift stores are a great way to find items to resell. But if you're in a place where non-essential businesses have shut down, I assume they have shut down. Or if you don't feel comfortable, you totally don't have to go. It's not the only place you could source. If you are sort of self-isolated right now, the other place besides your house and your closet that I would recommend looking is selling platforms. So the exact same platforms that you would sell on is where you could source inventory. So you could buy lots, like if you search like vintage lot, it'll pop up with like, I have 100 vintage tees, and then you can go through them and price them individually and list them individually. It's a good way to get sort of a bulk order of, inventory. You can also do auctions. So if someone really just wants to get rid of something, they might list it for a small amount. And then if you jump in on it at the right time, you might be able to get a really good deal for it and then flip it for more. And then just look out for low-priced items in general, just things that you know they could go for more, but you find them at a pretty low price, and then you can flip them. Like, I know some people will go on Poshmark and they'll find really cheap vintage clothes, and then when they list them on Etsy, they sell for a lot more. So it's really, you know, the value of clothing has become so arbitrary to me in the past year of experience. It's really, everything is worth what someone will pay for it. So yeah. So that's where to find inventory. So price checking. So how do you know if something's worth listing and selling? So I'm going to show you really quickly on eBay how you can look at the sold listings. Basically, you don't want to see like what other things have been listed for. You want to see what items have sold for. And then if it's a wide variety, either sort of average it out or go on the higher end with the intention of accepting an offer. So I'm just going to close out of this for a second. I'm going to make sure this is working. Okay, cool. And then, so, okay, basically if you're on eBay and you search for like a vintage Lawrence Kazar dress, then you would go down here, you click on sold items, and then, so now you can see the prices that they have sold for. So as you can see, like there's a line through a lot of them. That means that they took an offer. So like originally this was listed for $90. I don't know what the offer was that they took for it, but it wasn't $90. This one's $50. They took an offer for it. This one was an auction. It sold for $9.99, but it was one bid. Versus this one sold for $25. This one sold for $59.99. So you can see there's sort of like a range. If I were listing something like this, I would probably price it at like $49.99. It's kind of like right in the middle of all those prices. Cool. So how do I go back to that? Okay, cool. So that's how you check the sold listings. Let me show you actually really quickly with Poshmark how to do that. So let's say we're looking for Lawrence Kazar dress. Okay, so you can see all the ones that are listed, which, you know, it can sometimes be good to look at the listed ones too, just so you have an idea of what other people have it priced at to sell, but then look at what they actually sold for. So you see it's like 22, 30, 38, 35. So on Poshmark, it might not even sell for as much. So I might price it even lower if I was going to put it on Poshmark. I think I had that exact same dress. Okay, so that is how you price check. Cool, cool, cool. So, oh my goodness, Canva. Okay, so next up is taking photos and measurements. So the first thing you want to do when you're taking photos is good lighting. So either have daylight, you know, sort of in the background, or if you have any kind of lighting equipment, definitely use it. But just having like, if you take pictures at night with like just your lamp on or your, you know, overhead light, it's not going to look good. Next up, you want to have a blank or neutral background. So, you know, if you're really going hard with this, you can buy a cheap backdrop off of like Amazon, though right now Amazon's not, you know, going to ship out most things. If you're not going super crazy with this, this is just sort of a temporary thing for you. You can just use a plain wall or a blanket or a sheet on the floor. I mean, I personally just used a blank wall for most of the time, but we did have a backdrop that we bought and sort of a whole setup for it. So there's 3 different sort of setups that people use for taking pictures. You can do hanging, flat lays, or modeling, and I'll show you examples in the next slide. So for pictures of clothing, you can hang them, you can do a flat lay or a model, that's what I just said. Okay, and then we have, last thing to keep in mind is capture all the flaws. So ideally you don't ever want to get a return on an item, which means you have to be very forthcoming about any flaws or issues there are with the item. So here's the different types of pictures I mentioned before. So we have hanging, which means you hang the clothing up on a hanger and then you use a hook on the wall for the cleanest look. That's one of my more recent pictures. Then you have a flat lay, that's on the backdrop that we used to use. You just lay it flat and then take a picture from above. For certain items like t-shirts, it looks really good. For like jackets, not always. And then finally you have modeling, which means you wear the clothes and take pictures, or if you have a mannequin, you would put it on the mannequin like the picture that I show there. It does take a lot longer, and I wouldn't really recommend it unless you want to take the time to try it all on. Yeah. So measurements. So when you're taking measurements of the items, for a shirt, I would recommend doing the pit to pit and the length. Pit to pit just means like armpit to armpit, and then length, it sort of varies depending on who you ask, but I would do just from the shoulder to the bottom, to the hem. Then for pants, you want to do the waist, the rise, and the inseam. So waist is when you have it hanging loose, not like pulled really tight. You measure from one side to the other. Then the rise is from like the top to the crotch, and then the inseam is the crotch to the bottom. And then with dresses, I would always just do pit to pit, and then the waist measurement. So I would measure the waist area and then double it. And then length is just top to bottom. Cool. So here's an example of a listing on eBay. I'm just gonna double check on this again. Okay, cool. And so here's a listing on eBay. Here's all the stuff that you would need to include. So you have the title. I have like vintage Lawrence Kazar silk dress. So this is just one of my old listings that I pull up. And then you'll have to have a category. There's all kinds of categories. You know, these are all the clothing ones. You can go by specialty, men's, women's, kids, all that stuff. There's a lot of very specific ones. The eBay is pretty good at sort of automatically picking the right one when you enter the title, but if they don't, you can go through and pick which one is correct. Cool, so then you upload your pictures. These are some of the pictures that I took for this dress. So just, you know, it shows close-ups. There's some flaws so that people can see, like, you know, there's a little bit of loose threads and stuff. So that's what I mean when I say, like, make sure you include the flaws so people don't get it and they're like, well, you didn't mention that, you know, there were beads missing. Yeah, so that's my pictures. And then you can enter the brand, the size, the style, material, all that stuff. I wouldn't recommend going too crazy with these extra details because most people don't really care about them or search by them. And then down here we have the item description. So you can see I just, you know, described it. I said all the different colors and stuff, short sleeves, and then I talk about the condition, some loose beads, and then I have the material and the measurements are right down there. So pit to pit was 16, waist was 29, length was 40. Cool, so then down here we have the pricing. So like I said, I would list it for like $49.99. All the different things up here, we have fixed price, which is those, you know, they just buy it right out. And then there's auction style, which means it would be like 3, 5, 7, or 10-day auction. It used to be that you could schedule listings for free, but now it costs 10 cents, so I wouldn't recommend doing it. And then you can add best offer. So I personally like to add best offer just because I care more about selling things than I do about getting the highest price for them. So if you are doing best offer, you can change it so that like you automatically decline offers lower than $5. So it's up to you if you want to do that, because you might have some guy who comes and is like, I'll give you $1 for it. And it's like, that's not really worth it. But, you know, it's up to you. Oh, and keep in mind with best offer, you can counter offers when they send you an offer. So you could be like, well, I won't take $1, but I'll take 25, and then they might accept it. You never know. Cool. So then you'll have your payment policy. I know they've been rolling out eBay payments, which goes straight through them. I don't know if everyone can use it yet, but if not, you'll just use PayPal. So you'll need a PayPal account. Then you'll do your shipping policy, probably priority or first class. We'll talk about that later. And then your return policy. And then you'll enter the dimensions of the package, which I would just estimate as best you can. And yeah, and then you can do promotions, which I'll mention later, but basically you promote your listing and then you pay more if it sells. Cool, so then you would hit list item, but I'm not gonna do that because I don't have this dress anymore. All right, so let's check out Poshmark's listing method. So just really quickly, I'm just gonna show you what it looks like. I don't have an example necessarily, but this is where you would upload photos. It's a lot simpler than eBay, and you can list things on eBay and Poshmark. Just make sure if it sells on one that you take it off of the other. So that's where you put the title, description, categories. You know, on Poshmark they have women, men, kids, and home, and that's it. So I wouldn't really recommend selling like your iPhone on Poshmark, but yeah. So then we have single items. You can do multiple if you have multiple. That's not really something we're doing right now. Then you do the size. Is it new with tags? Meaning it's completely unused. The tags are still attached. You can enter the brand and then the colors. And finally, original price. If you don't remember what it is or don't know, just put like 0. And then for listing price, that's whatever you're going to charge. But what I like about Poshmark is when you enter your listing price, they'll tell you how much you actually earn after fees. So you know exactly how much you're going to get from them. So that's Poshmark's listing method. Cool. So I'll talk briefly about promoting your listings like I just sort of showed you on eBay. You can promote your listings on eBay, but you have to have an eBay store subscription, which if you're just doing this casually, not really worth it. I'm just going to drink some water. Cool. But if you are planning to do this long term, which, you know, who knows how long any of this is going to last, then it is worth getting at least like the most basic subscription so you can promote your listings. And basically what that means is if you promote it like 2%, that means when you sell it, you will pay 2% more in fees to eBay if the sale came through the promoted listing. So you only pay the extra if it comes through the promotion, which I personally think is worth it. I would only promote your listings at like 2% just because promoting it more doesn't really matter. Like you won't get necessarily more exposure, or at least enough exposure to make it worth the extra cost. Something else you can do is you can use social media to share what you're selling. If you want to use your personal account, you can. I personally made a different account, Weird Girl Vintage, and promoted through there, and it just felt a lot less weird because I wasn't trying to like sell to people I knew. But you can definitely get a pretty good following through it, especially from other sellers. And the interesting thing about like the community of like resellers is people who sell used things are more likely to buy used things, so that's kind of cool. And finally, on Poshmark, you can share your listings. Basically, there's a little icon by every listing once you've listed where you can share it. Share it as much as possible. If you can, share all of your listings 3 times a day. At a certain point, I had like 300 listings, so I did not share them once a day. I shared them like once every few days, just like while I was like on a treadmill. But yeah, I mean, if you're able to, definitely do it. It will give you a lot more sales. There's also like online things where you can hire someone to share your listings, but again, if you're doing this casually, I don't think it's worth it. Okay, next. Okay, so shipping supplies. So when you're shipping packages, there's like a pile of packages I had one time. You're gonna need something to put your sale in. So you're gonna need, you see the packages in the picture that are like the plastic. You've probably seen them if you've ever ordered clothing online. They're called poly mailers, and basically they're waterproof, they're really secure, they look good. You can get them if you have a certain level of eBay subscription. You can get eBay branded ones. You can get them at the store, but you can get them on Amazon, but again, Amazon not shipping much right now. So the place that I got them was a website called UPack and Ship. So it's UPAKN. I don't know. If you look up UPack and Ship, it'll show up. But I don't know what their deal is right now, but they'd probably still be shipping pretty normally. And then you'll probably need boxes if you're selling anything like shoes. The USPS priority boxes are free, so if you go to a post office, they will have them out there for you to just grab, or you can order them off of the post office website and they'll send you a whole like chunk of them, if that's the right word to describe. Cool, so the next thing you'll need is something to print the label with and on. So you'll either use just a regular printer with paper and then tape it on, or you could, if you're, again, taking this really seriously, you could get a specific label printer. If you are planning to do this long term, I definitely recommend getting a Dymo label printer, 4XL. We had that for the past year, and it saves us so much time. But if you're just planning to like sell stuff from your closet, you can just tape them on. And then finally, you will need access to either a post office or a post office drop box. I know right now it's probably hard for some people to get out and get to a post office. If that's true, I know at least in New York there were a lot of drop boxes that would fit most packages. as long as it's not like a big box. So I would look around your sort of neighborhood and see if there is one that you could go to locally. But if you are able to go to a post office, as of right now, the post office is staying open and it's running fairly normally. They're definitely following guidelines and everything, but they are qualified as an essential business. So they will stay open at least as long as we can see. Cool, so shipping rates. So there's kind of like 3 main options you can do for shipping. You can offer free shipping, which means you pay for it. And, you know, it can be anywhere from $3 to $15 depending on how much it weighs and where it's going. So I wouldn't recommend doing free shipping just because I don't think that it's going to change the amount of sales you get that much. And it just, I always felt better taking an offer lower than what I had, knowing that I was charging for shipping, so I didn't have to calculate that in. So the other 2 options, basically you can do calculated shipping, and I'm talking about eBay. On Poshmark, it's all flat rate, and they give you the shipping label and everything. But yeah, on eBay, there's first class, which is cheaper. It's $3 to $5, but you can only go up to 1 pound. So it's smaller packages like shirts and light things. And then you can do calculated priority mail, which costs around $9 to $10, but it could go up to like $15 if it's going like all the way across the country or something. But you can ship anything up to 70 pounds, which, you know, obviously it gets more expensive as it goes up in poundage, but yeah. So yeah, that's shipping rates. So I'm going to talk about fees really quick. How much does each platform take? So for eBay, 10% goes to eBay, 3% goes to PayPal, and then if you promote your listing and it's also a promoted listing, then you pay a little bit extra. So if you do, you know, a 2% promotion, that means you're going to end up paying about 15% in fees. So that's eBay. Poshmark, it's a 20% flat fee, and like I showed you, when you list, they'll tell you exactly how much you'll have afterwards. You can also offer shipping discounts. Basically, when someone likes your listing, you can send them an offer, and with the offer you can send them a shipping discount, and that will come out of your total at the end. And then finally, Depop, if you want to check that out, it's a 10% flat rate fee, and then 3% goes to PayPal for the PayPal fees. Yeah, so that's fees. And let's talk about returns. So what if someone wants to return something? You can offer free returns, which I recommend on eBay. It's, you know, based on sort of like anecdotal experience from other people. I've just heard of people where they didn't offer free returns, so the person who got it wanted to return it so bad that they like ripped it or stained it so they could be like, oh, it wasn't as described. And then they basically forced the return anyways, and now you have a damaged item. So I personally would rather just have free returns. I think people trust you more if you have free returns, so they're a little less wary of buying from you. And you won't get stuck with like people messing with your stuff to return it. So the other few options you can do, you can offer buyer paid returns, which basically means if they want to return something, they can, but they pay for the return shipping, versus with free returns, you pay for the return shipping and you give them a full refund. So basically with the free shipping, you are down, you know, the shipping costs both ways, but with a buyer paid return, you're only down the shipping cost one way. But like I said, some buyers will try to scam the system to get it for free, which is the same issue with the other option, which is not offering returns. Yeah. Finally, on Poshmark, they can only return after 3 days. So they get the item, they have 3 days to accept it. And I've had a couple returns on Poshmark, and they were totally my bad. I mislisted them. And Poshmark actually covered the return shipping fee, so I didn't lose any money on it, which is really nice. Poshmark is definitely more seller friendly than eBay, but eBay does have a lot more eyes. But yeah, Poshmark, they also can't return because of fit. So if you had the measurements on your listing and they try it on and they're like, this doesn't fit me, that's on them because they didn't check the measurements. Cool, so the last thing I wanted to talk about is impact from COVID-19. So we don't really know yet. This is sort of just getting started. So it's we're all kind of in the reseller community, like uncertain of how this is going to affect everything, but here's sort of like my take on it. First of all, I think people will be buying everything online, at least for the foreseeable future. And I know Amazon is prioritizing emergency and household goods as of now. I don't think they've stopped shipping other things, or they haven't stopped selling other things, but basically if you're selling on Amazon, you have to ship it yourself. You can't ship it to their warehouse and then they ship it to someone else. So I think when people are shopping for non-essential items like clothes or games, they would probably turn to eBay and Poshmark instead, because people are already used to shipping from home. And I think there's just going to be more speed when it comes to eBay than Amazon right now, at least with items like that are like non-essential. Secondly, as of now, the post office is open, but we don't know what will happen. So I know as of today, the post office is open and running normally, besides, you know, sanitizing extra and being careful. I don't think it would ever completely shut down because they are qualified as an essential service or an essential business, but it is possible that they would, down the line, start prioritizing certain packages. So it is possible that they might be like, well, now priority shipping is going to take, you know, a week to 2 weeks. I don't know, you know, this is all completely unprecedented. We don't really know if they would just be like, no one can ship anything unless it's like medical supplies. But I feel like, you know, people get their prescriptions through the mail, you know, if we can't all meet in person, at least we could send each other cards. You know, I just don't see personally a scenario where the post office would completely shut down. And then the last thing is people may have less expendable income. So that kind of has like two sides when it comes to this. On the one hand, people may not be wanting to buy non-essentials, but on the other hand, if they are looking to buy non-essentials, they will definitely be looking for deals, which I feel like eBay and Poshmark, Depop, those are all places where you find a good deal. So especially with, you know, there's still birthdays, there's still anniversaries, people are getting bored, they want a board game, they want video games, they want movies. So I do think people still will be buying those things. So, but I think they'll want to pay less for them, which I think would be eBay and Poshmark and stuff would be the place that they would find those deals. So, you know, it's kind of a mixed bag. I think overall everything will probably be affected more in a negative way from COVID-19. I mean, it's hard to see how anything would be affected positively, but I do think that this will still have a shelf life. I do think that people will still be buying things online and selling things online, and I don't think that this is something that you won't be able to do, like, at least anytime soon. But that's just my take on it. You know, I'm not a doctor, but I've been reading a lot, and yes. Cool. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that this helps someone out there to make some extra income in this very, very difficult time. That's really my goal, is like, if this can help one person, then I feel like it's worth it. You know, I can take like 20 minutes out of my day to sort of share how I made money from home, just to help anyone out there that maybe is laid off or isn't sure where their next income is going to come from. And overall, I hope everyone's okay out there. I know this is a really, really difficult time. If there's anything that I can do to help, or any more information that you'd like, please feel free to reach out. I'm just gonna check if there's any questions. I don't think that there are, but I'm gonna double check because I don't wanna miss them. Cool, there's not. Oh, it's been like 33 minutes. Okay, so yeah, thank you guys for watching. I wish you guys all the best, and you know, good luck out there. Yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, reach out to me. If you know there's anything I can offer you, just an ear to listen or a virtual shoulder to cry on, let me know. Yeah, love you guys. Bye.